fits differently.
Great, so thank you everyone for coming. I hope you're having a good afternoon. It's very busy here at CAA with our annual conference next week, but it's great to take some time out and discuss RAAMP. So just to introduce everyone, we have Bruce Altschuler from NYU. He's the Director of Museum Studies, among other things. We also have Sandra Lang. She's also from NYU, but she's a Director and Professor in the Visual Arts Administration. And we also have Laura Busby and Olivia Knauss. They are both former RAAMP interns that happen to be in those same two programs. So Laura's in Visual Arts Administration and Olivia is in Museum Studies. And talking to them as they were working for CAA, it was interesting to kind of note that they were in programs that were both similar and different, and that a lot of these different programs are a little bit confusing for folks that are looking to work in the museum field. So I just thought that we could use this coffee gathering as a little exploration into that idea. So I just want to start with a few questions for Bruce and Sandra, and you can answer as you see fit. So I guess just more generally, I just want to ask what you see as the main differences between museum studies and visual arts administration in terms of the goals and the curriculum.
Sandra, you want me to start or do you want to go?
Well, I'll start.
Okay, good.
I think the main difference between visual arts administration and museum studies is that the curriculum of the visual arts administration program has a business spine. And we look at the museums indeed, but we look at the whole visual arts field. So our goal is really a 360-degree look at all the different elements that go into visual arts administration, different kinds of jobs, different kinds of areas. That's the goal.
I tend to see the fields as sort of intersecting. Museum studies deals with all kinds of museums, not just art museums. And Cindy's programs deals with all kinds of art institutions and art careers, and not just museums. So there's this kind of overlap. Our program does have, courses and training in more sort of hands-on museum activities, including management, fundraising, exhibition design, museum education, technology, but also I think equally emphasizes the sort of history and theory of museums and kind of current museum issues. So I think there's a sort of a little more of a kind of equal balance between, I guess you could call it theory and practice, but obviously those fields sort of merge into one another.
Right. I think we have an equal balance between theory and practice too. So, but we also go into a lot of different areas, from public policy in the visual arts to public art to education in museums. We overlap a lot. Our students go and take museum studies courses.
Exactly.
It's certainly not, and vice versa. Not a lot, but sometimes. And we just look at the whole of the different aspects of what you could do if you wanted to be in visual arts administration. Some people don't want to be in museums, so it's a whole panoply of offerings and that we have in our curriculum.
So it sounds like you both have a mix of sort of theoretical and practical knowledge. Is it a different ratio, do you think, or does it really just depend on the way that the program evolves, or has evolved?
In our case, it's funny because I'm always telling people who ask about the program that our courses sort of are equally. They've got an equal number of courses on both these sides, if you can divide things that way, which is an artificial division in many cases. But and in fact, I went back and looked at a number of years of our courses, and in fact, they're like exactly equal. So, our curriculum is built around 3 core courses: history and theory of museums, museum exhibitions and collections, and museum management. And beyond that, there are electives, some of which are these hands-on courses that are more typical of museum studies programs. And some look at museums as objects of study from the standpoint of anthropology, art history, cultural studies, history. I mean, basically, we draw, I think, our students from three main areas. I think this is true for most museum studies programs, though different ones might have strengths in one or the other area, which is like art history, history, and anthropology. And those seem to be sort of the areas from which most of our students come in terms of their undergraduate majors. But we have students coming from literature, business, all sorts of things. So it's really, but I think in terms of a academic disciplinary route into museums, it's one of those three.
Mm-hmm.
So our program is currently, although we're about to change it, it currently has two tracks, a sort of arts management, not-for-profit track, and an arts markets for-profit track. And, we try and sort of, over the years, have tinkered with the curriculum, and we're doing so now because of the field is changing so much. The line between for-profit and not-for-profit is blurring. So we're going to not have those two sides of our curriculum so siloed.
Interesting.
Heretofore, people have had to choose either one or the other. They could take the other as electives, and they have to take 3 business courses, and there's certain core courses, and then they have quite a large number of electives that they can choose from. So that in any given term, our goal is to offer sort of a portfolio of choices. Maybe a marketing in the visual arts course, or a critical theory course, these are more theoretical, some are more practical. We have a curatorial emphasis which has a curatorial studies course, as well as exhibition design and collections registrar. We have a sort of a marketing emphasis so that a student can choose which direction they might like to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Public policy, using not only our own courses, but maybe courses in Wagner. We encourage our students to go and use this whole university. Bruce's courses,
right,
as well as elsewhere at the university. So there's a lot to choose from. I think there's a lot of choice in terms of what you want to. We really are very closely, as I think Bruce is advised, and we really sit down and work with the student to figure out and they are sort of working it out as they go through, so that they get the skills and the needs and the background knowledge of what they need to go on and go further in the field.
Yeah, Sandy mentioned the issue of tracks, where students enter a program and have to select one direction or another. Our program does not have that. But many museum studies programs do, if you look at different curricula. So you might enter a program where you sort of decide that in a sense kind of major in, say, museum education and community work, or collections management, or kind of a curatorial track, or fundraising and management issues. We're fortunate because we are being in New York. We have such an incredible range of opportunities for internships, where so much learning is done on the job. I mean, Sandy's in the same situation. I mean, all of our students do multiple internships, or most of them do multiple internships. We require one internship, and that's characteristic of museum studies programs, and I suspect arts management programs too. But we're just fortunate to be in New York, where there's so many different ways to go.
As you say, being in New York, I always tell our students they can shop with internship, because there are more people who want more venues that want our students. I'm sure the same, Bruce, than we have students to supply to them.
Yeah, and Laura and Olivia, I know you both had some very impressive internships. Where are you both now?
Laura, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm in my second term at the Whitney Museum. And then, of course, I was with the CAA over the summer. And then I'm also interning at Creative Time. So I'm getting a nice balance between a public art museum and then public art projects in general.
Oh, that's great.
So cool. So cool. I'm actually coming into you live from the Tenement Museum at my internship this semester. And I'm also interning kind of part-time at MoMA right now, too. So it's a really nice mix of experiences.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like some of your students have some very impressive resumes. Do they get help finding internships?
one of our faculty members serves as the internship coordinator. So it is not as though she goes and gets them the internships, but works with the students. We have for the internship that's required in our program, we have kind of some structure, and there's various meetings to kind of set up that process. She works with people on their CVs. We also work with the, the Wasserman Center, which is the career services at NYU, where they'll help students with their resumes. So, it doesn't fall, we don't say to the students, go out and find an internship. I mean, there's some support.
No, I think that's really important considering how many places there are, and that you might not even know how to start the process or really what you're looking for, or know of a lot of the places that aren't quite as big.
And also,
we have an internship coordinator also, and all the same things that Bruce had, access here at NYU, and people know us, and I know they know Bruce's program because they often ask us about both. So
right, I mean, both of our programs have been in existence for quite a while. Sandy's is a little older than ours. I mean, we started in '79 and have many graduates out there. So, and have had generations and generations of interns out there. So who have been out there
now in jobs.
So we are known, and also there are certain people at different institutions we've worked with over the years as well. So all of that it's good to have someone centering that for the students.
I should also add too, especially, I don't know if the Visual Arts Administration program has a similar group, but I'm part of the Museum Studies student organization. So we work really closely with the faculty member that helps kind of give information for students when they're on the hunt for their internships. And I would say a lot of the way, especially I got an internship because of word of mouth through the program, working with someone from MSSO or Museum Studies Student Organization, just letting me know that something was open. And we have a Facebook page too, so if there's any opportunities, it's kind of a nice grassroots way of finding an internship.
Oh, that's great.
We have an alumni council that it makes itself available to our students and runs several programs, a career mentoring program twice a year, and they also, students want to go into a particular area. They're from different aspects of visual arts administration, and they are certainly available to our students to touch base with. And so often a student will graduate, get a job, and turn around and want an intern. So it's a key resource.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. But you both have separate internship coordinators, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
We're in the Department of Art and Art Professions, and our internship coordinator oversees all the internships for not just us, but for the studio program and for the art education program and costume studies, other programs in the department.
Yeah, I should explain that NYU is divided into a number of schools. Sandy and I
Right.
are different schools, but we certainly work together. And the things are slightly organized differently. Things are organized slightly differently in both of our programs, but all the same functions are performed, in different ways. We're part of the Graduate School of Arts and Science, and so our students, for instance, have ready access to other arts and science courses. They may take 2 of their 4 electives outside museum studies, and many of them take advantage of that. And we also work closely with other programs within arts and science, public history for people interested in history. We have a joint appointment with anthropology as well as art history. So there's a lot of back and forth beyond the students. And one of the things I think that's most interesting is the way in which students from outside museum studies will be able to take museum studies classes as well as our students taking courses outside. So there's a lot of mixing of interests.
And we're in the Steinhardt School of Culture Education.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Oh, we seem to be having some issues. Laura and Sandy both just disappeared. So we might have to wait for them for a minute.
Could have been an NYU Wi-Fi issue, because I think they're both using
That's what I was
Wi-Fi
thinking.
near each other.
So we can be a little bit patient. But no, that's very interesting because I mean, I've looked at different programs at different schools, and a lot of times it's not organized the same way because these programs did come up organically, often at different times, and maybe under the agency of different schools or different departments. And I see the same thing with university presses. Some are under the library, some are, under development, completely different areas. And I think that does affect a lot of the small things as you go forward.
Well, many programs really grew out of an interest of individuals in a given department and would have a slant towards those departments. Our program was begun as a certificate program, which required an MA already or to be in concurrently. And that was started as in, like, I think 79 by an anthropologist whose interest was kind of around the social kind of functioning of museums and the political issues around museums, part of what used to be called the new museology. So it's always been kind of a critical museum type program. And when I came, which is now close to 20 years ago, it was clear there was an increasing interest in a master's degree program. So we started that, and now virtually all of our students are MA students.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone comes to us with it already having an MA or PhD, they can do our certificate and pretty much get, it's 24 credits versus like 32 for the MA. So it's a very full-blown certificate.
Oh, that's great. And Sandra mentioned that they were looking to change the track system in their program. Do you see a lot of changes still happening, at the moment?
In museum studies? Yeah, I mean, museums are very dynamic. I mean, museums being part of like this world that's changing. Certainly there's increased emphasis on technology within programs. There's, more concern, I think, a more focal concern with social justice. Museums and more activist environments than there was certainly 10, 15 years ago. The general orientation, which has always been sort of within the American and British museum community towards audience, kind of an audience-defined mission, I think is more and more embraced within curricula of museum studies programs around courses, dealing with community access, diversity, both within the profession and within the audience. Services provided by museums to a broader audience. So all of that is, I mean, it's been around, but I think it's increasingly emphasized within museum studies programs.
I think that we're back.
Okay, I see both of you showing up. I don't have Laura's video just yet. I'm sure she's trying it now.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my video seems to not want to turn on. Sorry about that.
There's always a little bit of lag. That's fine. There you are.
There we go.
So we were just talking about, Sandra, you had mentioned that you were changing in terms of the tracks of your program. So I was asking Bruce if he saw any other changes kind of happening at the moment that you need to be aware of, kind of going through museum studies. Are there any other things that you really see changing in these types of programs?
Well, I think both programs have had to respond to the field. I don't know if Bruce feels the same way. I mean, I know that we adjust our courses all the time. The nature of, for instance, I'll give you the nature of our digital technology course has changed drastically over the years. Now there's somebody in every museum called the digital strategist. So we just, and this has a wonderful person who teaches your tech course, I believe, over there. And we've all just had to adjust to what the changes that are going on in the field. The bigger challenges for fundraising. We not only have a basic fundraising course, we have a corporate sponsorship course, and then there are courses to send students to in Wagner, and maybe they want more of the history of philanthropy, or Stern. There are luxury marketing courses. I mean, people want even more subdivisions of what they basically get, and we have that option. So
technology is an interesting case, I think, because not only are there courses that are devoted to particular technology subjects, but it's almost like, I don't know if we think back a long time ago in universities, kind of this movement towards writing throughout the curriculum. So you don't just have a writing course, but writing is taught everywhere. So technology, in a weird way, has, or in an analogous way, has become so widespread in terms of all museum functions that pretty much every course one has kind of has some technological component. You know, because that's the world we live in. So it's not just kind of, okay, you take a technology course or you don't get exposed to technology. Because in fundraising, collections management, many areas of museum practice, technology is central.
Yeah, and recently on the AAMG listserv, I saw a huge conversation just about teaching database management, for instance, for students.
Right.
Yeah. All kinds of creative placemaking is something that we've embraced more recently in the last 5 years. You know, where we go out and find the people who could best teach the things that are happening in the field, if not from our own faculty.
Right. That's another feature of museum studies and arts management, I think, is that many of the courses are taught by practitioners, by professionals in the field, you know, working as adjuncts, teaching what they do. So we do have our own faculty that teach a range of courses, but quite a few of the courses that focus on particular areas of museum work are taught by people that do that work. Mm-hmm. Which I think is true across the board in museum studies programs. And clearly we have, like, you know, being in a large city, you have access to many more possibilities. Smaller or a museum studies program, and there's some very good ones run, you know, in large universities, often will use the university museum in a, you know, much more active way than we do here, or really able to, because of the feature. You know, we have a fantastic art gallery, but it's not a full-blown freestanding museum. So students work there, but it's not as though we can go there for everything we teach.
Mm-hmm. And all of our classes can utilize the city and do utilize for site visits.
Oh yeah.
For, you know, for having some of the courses, we teach a course at the Museum of Modern Art, different kinds of ways of using the art venues in the city, not just always having the classes here.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. I was at Penn State and we had the Palmer Museum of Art, but I mean, that was kind of a touchstone for almost all of our classes.
Sure.
And that was great, but I can't imagine being in a course like this in New York City. It must be fantastic. The one thing that I was wondering is, especially since these are sort of separate programs, but there seems to be a lot of overlap, I think, in terms of classes and interest and outcomes. Do you get a lot of students trying to switch between them?
Not really. I mean, we have students that take courses across them, but I cannot think of one student I can think of one, actually, a number of people.
Yeah.
But
somebody applies.
People are pretty happy with their programs, and because both of them admit or, you know, kind of allow and encourage, you know, branching out from that particular program with taking courses elsewhere. I think people have a lot of options.
I mean, it sounds like they get a lot of information about both of the courses to begin with. I mean, they're made aware of it, but they're also able to kind of design their curriculum to some degree based on what they want to do. Does that sound correct?
There are occasions when I'll talk to a potential candidate, and you know, just because of the way what their interests are, what their goals are long term, I'll say, you know, you really should consider the museum studies program. Mm-hmm. You seem to me to be really set on just you know, having a museum career or something, and I'm sure vice versa. And
yeah, definitely.
There are also, you know, I might send them to one of the other arts management programs because maybe they don't really just know that, you know, we're the one or two programs in this country that concentrate solely on visual arts administration. Most programs in this country are combined performing and visual arts administration. You can tell an enormous amount about an arts management program by where it's situated in its parent university. Mm-hmm. And we're in the art department because we really, you know, art and the artists come first here, which is something we try and convey throughout our curriculum. And I'm sure for those who want art museums.
Yeah, I mean, as Sandy said, I mean, sometimes, you know, because we each talk to, you know, prospective students, and sometimes people will come in, it's clear that they really are more interested in, say, some kind of involvement with the commercial art world, not as museum focused, but all they thought about was museum studies because that's all they heard about, and it's been obviously the same on your side.
Yeah, I think it can be a little confusing until you do have these discussions. So that's good to hear. I have a slightly difficult question, perhaps. So what are the advantages, do you think, of earning a higher degree in one of these fields rather than just going directly into an entry-level museum position?
Well,
Go ahead.
I mean, my experience in talking to a lot of students who potentially want to come to this program is that, you know, they've been trying to get museum jobs, and really people are requiring master's degrees. I mean, there's this degree inflation in, you know, our world, which is, you know, a fact of life. And, you know, our students now are getting the jobs that they would have gotten out of, you know, coming right out of university like 15 years ago. And that they're certainly more well prepared, but everyone learns what they do on the job. And I think institutions are increasingly, you know, able to ask for in their prospective employees for master's degrees. So I don't think it's as easy to get an entry-level museum job without a master's degree of some sort, than, you know, as it used to be. The other thing is that museum studies in particular, you know, I think there's been a change, a kind of increasing acceptance and interest in museum studies, training for museums, rather than just a disciplinary MA. Not just, but a disciplinary MA as a different route. So, you know, it used to be you would get an MA in art history or history, anthropology, and moving into an entry-level job in museums of that kind. Increasingly, people are looking for broader museum skills, or it's certainly on the same page.
Absolutely. I think that Bruce and I have both been in professional situations before we came here, and you know, it's that issue of the people in the field want somebody who's as well trained as they can get in order to fill the jobs they need. They need it in a hurry, and they need somebody who's that much more prepared, and I think they get it from both of these programs. So I feel our students can start a little bit higher, not the entry-level job, but the next step or two up in terms of when they get out of here. And especially, I always tell them, applying for an internship is like applying for a job used to be. It's the first step, and really in terms of thinking of your career path down the road. So, and the field is demanding it, as Bruce said.
Great. So I think I'm going to turn to Laura and Olivia for a little bit, just about their feelings on the programs and the job market. I think I'm actually going to ask you about why you chose these programs in the first place.
Olivia, why don't you go first?
Okay. So I was one of those people that I really went back and forth about choosing, like, to go to graduate school, because I really loved working. I loved being on the job. I loved, like, learning through hands-on experiences. And so I took my time deciding what kind of program I want to go to, and that's really why I was drawn to museum studies, because of the type of learner I am. Like Bruce was saying before, our program is very hands-on, very practical, heavy, like, interest in internships, and you're, you know, really kind of forced to get out there and intern. So that's why I was looking into museum programs, and kind of a whole handful of programs across the country, mostly centered in cities though. So I was looking at in San Francisco, I was looking in New York, I was looking kind of like throughout New England as well. But before I started kind of the pursuit of grad school, I was working in an academic gallery at a boarding school, and that's kind of where I developed, like, the love of working in a collecting gallery and, like, with students, high school students, and I loved working and doing a lot of different things. So I see that similarity very much in the program at NYU, where I can take an education class, I can take a development and fundraising class, and I feel like all, like, the internships and the classes I've taken are kind of making me, fingers crossed, a well-rounded candidate for any future job position. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I'll pass it over to Laura, though.
Well, I come from a Canadian perspective. So my undergrad is art history. And it was during my undergrad experience where I realized I'm getting all the theory, but I need the practical. So I started touring at the Vancouver Art Gallery, which in Canada we call them galleries, not museums. So I was a baby when I started there. I think I was like 19 giving tours, and I loved it. So it was an outlet for me. And then I started working those entry-level positions in museums, so group bookings administrator and development. But I knew I couldn't advance without a master's degree. And in Canada, we don't have many museum studies programs. I think that there's one. We certainly don't have any visual arts administration programs. There's a ton of art history programs, and I think there's a curatorial studies program, which is very popular, and everyone has that degree. And I was very aggressive. I wanted to get outside of the Canadian system. I knew that America had much more degree opportunities, and also in terms of institutions, I wanted to see what was happening in America. And so I spent a number of years researching, but really keeping an eye on programs that offered theory and practice. I wanted that baked into the degree. Mm-hmm. A good friend of mine took the VAA program a number of years ago. She raved about it, and she's now curating at the Vancouver Art Gallery. So it came full circle for her. And so the Visual Arts Administration program, what I was keen about was it offered me the whole ecology. I wanted something that was going to cast a wide net in what my learning opportunities were. Initially, I was looking for art history, but then after working in a museum for a number of years, in an arts museum, leadership became very important to me, and I really wanted to not just work in education, but learn how all of the departments operate and how they work with one another. For example, I saw that curatorial and public programs, there was a wall between them, and I wanted to just see where I could be the best leader I could be in institutions. And I had the great privilege of working with extraordinary leaders, and I saw how that affected an institution. And I saw how not so great leadership played out. So I wanted a degree that was going to train me to lead and to learn just the various components of not just art museums, but art institutions in general, because art museums work with a wide landscape of the art market. I should mention, I'm a first-year nonprofit track, so I'm specifically taking courses that teach me the realm of art museums and nonprofit organizations. I'm taking the MoMA education class, which I love. It's so amazing to learn in MoMA and the history of education. We've read some of Bruce's articles in the history of museum interpretation. So it cast a wide net for me, and I do feel like I'm coming out of this degree with really great knowledge, but also I can learn how to read a budget. That's something you should do, and you don't always want to do, but you need to do, and this degree is helping me do that. I'm currently in the financial accounting course, so it's a good time, but it's so important to learn. It's so important. So that's a long answer, but...
No, that's great. I mean, as someone who studied art history and got a master's degree in art history, I can't imagine going into a museum right after that. I mean, I can, but I think it would be a huge learning curve. So I think if you really want to go into museum studies, it's very different. I mean, art history, you learn some things historiographically, theoretically, but you really don't get any of that practical knowledge unless you're also, say, a fellow or an intern at a museum. So it's definitely very different.
I should add, with the internship I have right now at the Whitney, I'm in the curatorial department, and so many things that I'm learning in my classes apply to that. But then I learn these practical experiences about how to process loan forms and indemnity applications, and that applies back to my program. So they do feed into each other really well.
Oh, that's great to hear. Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel like your projects or your thoughts about the future, they ever cross into one of the other programs?
Do you mean like projects I'm working on are more like related to visual arts administration, or? Okay. I don't know, Laura, do you want to go first?
That's a good question. I think a few of my courses, we looked at the history of museums. Like I said, we've read some of Bruce's articles, and just the museological perspective is really important, especially for those of us who want to do art museums in the future. But I was thinking, I don't think I've had one class yet with another museum studies student. I only know Olivia. I've shared classes with performing arts and then the art education crew, but I haven't had much experience seeing the other museum studies students and learning about their experience other than Olivia.
Oh, do you have any questions for each other?
Yeah, I think we were at a coffee shop one time, and
Yeah.
we just sort of we tracked our program. We're like, oh, that's the equivalent of what I'm taking over here. So it does seem like there's similarities, but for the VAA side, it seems like it's very specific to visual arts institutions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to think about your first question, though, of kind of crossover. And in a way, my thesis is actually kind of broader than museums, because I'm looking more at outsider artists, so, and kind of the conservation of art environments. So that's not necessarily situated within a museum, but there are connections with museums. So I think that's also a great benefit of the thesis in the museum studies program, because even though we're getting all this incredible training on kind of the administrative side of museums, we can also kind of look further outside, more kind of in the visual arts world, to see what we're interested in. But that was the only thing that came to mind to that question, though. Because I also haven't taken any classes with any other visual arts administration students, even though we're able to in NYU. I've taken some really great classes with like environmental science master students, which is like a really exciting way to incorporate other perspectives into the museum studies program. And as Bruce mentioned, a lot of public history students come in, and I think I've had some like gender and sexuality students, like master students, come in as well. So those are kind of moments that I really enjoy at NYU. But maybe we should get more museum studies, visual arts administration crossover in our classes. That would be.
We'll start a club.
Yeah, that would work.
Actually, so Olivia, I think you said that there was a club for museum studies students. Laura, do you know if there's one for visual administration students?
There's a couple clubs. Yeah, Sandy can probably say more. 3. There's other content, which is the curatorial club. There's art and activism. And then there's the finance and art. Is that correct?
The Finance Society.
Finance Society.
It's called.
Fun.
They have speakers come in, these programs that are starting companies. They're not programs. They're part of the company's decision to, to put money against art assets. How is that all done? Blockchain, Bitcoin, all. We've had people come and speak. The clubs generally have panels, or our curatorial class is able to do an exhibition and curate it in our building, because we're the art building. We have a space for them to work with our BFA and our MFA students. I should just hang this phone. Sorry.
That's fine. There's always something different happening on these Skype calls. So are there any groups that span the entire scope of these 2 programs, or that you might both be in?
I don't personally know of any. Another organization I'm involved in, thanks to Bruce, is the Friends of the Gray Art Gallery. So that's a group that collects students from different schools, all somewhat related to the arts, and kind of as a committee to help with organizing events and walkthroughs and spreading the news of what's happening at the Gray Art Gallery. So that's just one example. There might be another group. I'm not sure.
So we have a representative at the Gray Art Gallery as well, from the department, not just from our program. But, I mean, the Gray is a great resource to all of us. It's such a wonderful university gallery. Great choice. But maybe there should be, I don't know, something.
Well, New York is a place where people get involved in so many different things, and not only through their individual programs. I mean, it's, you can just go to so much around here and follow your own interests that I don't think it's always so university centric in the way it would be if you were in a smaller place. But I don't know what your experience is as students. I mean, our students certainly spend a lot of time with each other. All their sort of extracurricular time is that way. But we keep them busy, so.
That's very true.
I bet, yeah. Good. So, for Laura and Olivia, where do you think this education is going to lead? What are you looking for in the future?
That's the $1,000,000 question.
I know it's a hard one.
Well, I'd like to stay in art museums. That's always been my natural habitat. And I'm really taking this opportunity while in school and interning to get a sense. I'm really taking the opportunity to look under the hood of a lot of organizations. I really want to see, again, how those departments work together, just that bird's eye view of different organizations. I'd like to be in a leadership position, exhibition management. I find like I just naturally how I am is I like to have people work together. And so I think it's about through this process finding my own skills, what I enjoy doing, but I know I'm going to come out with really great foundations from this degree. Again, when I talk to curators, not all of them are thrilled about reading a budget, and that's so essential to planning exhibitions. There's so much practical knowledge that goes into these projects, and I do feel like I've learned so much more than I could have ever just learned working in my jobs at museums before.
Mm-hmm.
So I remain hopeful, and I also have 2 countries to figure out where to end up.
That's always nice.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because, so I should mention I'm a second-year museum studies student, and I am in my last semester. So I am starting the job hunt. So this is a pretty tough question well, I mean, it's a question I've been thinking about a lot since the start of this year, really. And I keep on getting that question, are you going to stay in New York for the rest of your life? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll go where the job is. But I would love to just I love working in museums, art museums, history museums, kind of any museum, because I'm really passionate about working for a mission-based organization and being part of a team that's delivering a mission and making an impact. So I really do think I could be happy anywhere, but more specifically, I love the behind-the-scenes work in museums. Like I love being part of a development department and helping the department achieve fundraising goals and like seeing how funding continues to help kind of deliver its mission in different ways. And I don't know, just kind of having like a bird's eye view of an organization is a really exciting place to be in. So I will hopefully end up in a development or like special events internship. Or sorry, not internship, I'm full-time position, what I should say. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about a lot recently.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you both have a very good start. So I also wanted to open this up to anyone else that's listening. If they have any questions, you can either turn your microphone on, you can turn your video on if you like and ask, or you can use at the bottom left or possibly the bottom right. There should be a little balloon that you can open up our conversation and you can type in some questions. So do any of you have questions for each other?
I have to think about that for a second. I think a topic that we haven't really talked about, we were talking about internships and how impactful they are and great in creating a network for future job hunting. But I think given all of the current discussions about salary and benefits and like unionization that's happening in museums and other arts organizations, I guess I'm maybe for the directors here. How would you talk to a prospective student about unpaid internships? Like, are you a fan of them? Would you offer any other resources to help students that are considering them? Do you think they're necessary? I'll let you take it away.
Well, it's obviously a very important issue now in museums. In fact, the Association of Art Museum Directors, has a position that, internships should be paid. But museums, like many other institutions, cultural institutions, and in fact, profit-making institutions, depend a lot on intern labor. Mm-hmm. And, people, I think, have the will to find the money to do this, but it's not built into the way things are working now. And we certainly feel strongly that students should be paid. On the other hand, we feel strongly that they need to do internships. So, while we will lobby, while we will look for internships that are paid, those are, a smaller proportion. I wish we could, and in fact, we've been talking about raising funds in order to support some, student internships, but we do not do that now. But we would love to, and I think it's really up to museums to prioritize this. I mean, the professional organizations have said it's a priority, but I have to, I've yet to see. I mean, I do not know the degree to which that's becoming a reality.
So
I don't know what you think.
pay something. They boost. I know there are some paid internships.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
But we
not a lot, but
we can't require that students do paid internships because of our, principles that they all should be paid, because better they do an internship than no internship.
Right.
But it's a very important issue in museums right now, and one that I think, museum studies programs, training programs, visual arts administration programs really need to lobby more for. But it's, in the end, it's the museums that have to pay for this.
and it's not only museums. I think a lot of profit arts organizations have been relying, some of the auction houses, on non-paid internships, and they're having to shape up. I know corporate collections, they're having to learn to pay their legal things that are going on. There are some resources, like Wasserstein has some kind of it's not the whole paid, but some kind of a grant that some students can apply for, and some professional organizations offer a paid art table and things like that, but they're few and far between.
Well, I do know that, I think it was AAM, but their statement on museum internships, there was an exclusion for getting credit for your internship. So would you allow that in your programs?
Well, we actually have, our required internship is a 4-credit internship.
Okay.
I mean, one way the landscape has changed is that many students, I'd say all students who are coming into our program, have all.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Did I make it? Did I stay?
You're
You're-
still here.
Yeah.
No. They were
Bruce
just
is
zapped
gone.
by the
It must be
NYU Wi-Fi.
Yeah, an NYU Wi-Fi monster.
But while you're both
Ah.
here, Ann Ackerson typed in that she would encourage both of you to pay attention to the gender pay gap when job hunting. And I know that the anonymous Excel spreadsheet had gone out and around, and that also had a gender component, didn't it? Did they mention gender in that?
I don't. Not that the last time I looked at it, I don't. Anne is shaking her head too. I don't think that
No, I
there's a
don't think so.
gender component
Is it?
on it.
Yeah, because I never saw analytics of it. It was just the spreadsheet itself.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard with it just in that form to really see what it's saying about things like, the level and geography and gender and that sort of thing. But I do think it's changing, and I think a lot of folks are certainly aware of the problem with internships across the board and not just in museums. But I think it's really important that statement was made, that that interns should be paid, because it's
They should.
yeah, I mean it's labor, it's servitude, and we've also just had this discussion about curating as academic labor. So it's something where the labor that we do isn't monetized in a lot of different ways. But I think the internships, it's you're picking a very vulnerable group of people that don't want to say no to opportunities, but also don't have a lot of money and have a really hard time finding money in the midst of doing a lot of schoolwork as well, which you're paying to actually do work for the university, and you still have to go above and beyond to do things that you may or may not get paid for. Oh, and Ann also said, seek out the Pink Collar Profession article at the AAM blog, written by Joan Baldwin. When I do a recording of this, I will include that with the recording on our blog post so that everyone else can check that out as well.
Joan and I are co-founders of the Gender Equity in Museums movement called GEM, and I encourage you to check out the GEM website, and on which you'll find some statistical information and probably a link to the Pink Collar profession, and that's not the exact title of the blog post that Joan wrote. And Joan and I have also written a book called Women in the Museum: Lessons from the Workplace that was published a couple of years ago, talking about issues of gender equity in the museum field. So, and let me just say that the issues that you find in museums, you find all across the art sector, all across the nonprofit sector, all across the for-profit sector. So, for you two, Laura and Olivia, you have an opportunity and a burden, in a way, to pay attention to these things and to go into institutions with your eyes wide open as to pay and benefits and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, and that's great that we have groups like that that can help support them. And I'd love to actually maybe discuss this more, especially in terms of RAAMP. We work generally on resources for academic art museums, but this is a huge topic that's really useful to consider. So I might actually, like to have a conversation with you and maybe a couple of other folks.
Yeah.
Oh, do we have Bruce back?
Hi.
I think we have both of them back. Hello.
Hi, Bruce.
Disappeared.
Oh no.
Yes.
Screen went away.
Yeah, I feel like NYU is just zapping people left and right.
Yeah.
Don't blame the university.
It's that conscious. No, I don't think so.
Okay, it's some New York ghost. We need the Ghostbusters.
I'm sorry to cut this short, but the conference room I'm using, there's another meeting behind, so I will have to say goodbye right now. But Cali, if you want to share my email address, I'm very happy to field any other questions specifically about museum studies or going to school in New York, internships, anything. Please feel free to reach out to me. But thank you so much. I'm sorry, I just have to go.
No, that's fine.
Thanks.
Olivia, I'll see you
Great to meet
soon.
you.
Nice to
Thanks,
meet you all.
Olivia.
Thank you.
Nice to meet
Thanks.
Well, I don't see any more questions coming up, but I wanted to say, Sandra and Bruce, if you have any resources about your programs and about, say, the differences, the history, anything like that, that you would like us to share along with this recording, you can send those to me and I'd be happy to share those as well.
Okay, great.
Okay, we will.
Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Well, same goes for me. Feel free to put my email on the website as well. I know when I was looking, it was helpful to just ask a ton of questions to anyone I could find. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone in the future has about, looking for programs, internships, New York City, living in Bushwick.
Yes, put it forward with mentorship.
Yes.
Greatly appreciated.
Well, Callie, thanks for doing this. I think I hope it's been useful to people.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope it-
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't completely sure about the differences, and I realized there must be others that are also not sure. So it's really nice to have this conversation and sort of see what options are out there, especially for young folks.
Great idea.
And I think Sandy and my contact information will be on the material we send you, I'm sure. So
Absolutely.
people should feel free
Wonderful.
to reach out to us.
Okay.
Great, yeah, and I'd love to keep in touch.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for everything. I will put this recording up as soon as possible, and I will get back to you. And Bruce, I think I'll see you at CAA next week.
See you next
Sandra,
week.
I don't...
On Thursday. I'm just there for the day on Thursday. Bruce, are you there all week?
Yeah, I'm on the CAA Museum Committee, so
That's right.
so that's on Wednesday at 8 a.m. So I'll be there early and
Good luck.
coming back on Saturday.
Wonderful. Well, Sandra, I'd love to thank you in person on Thursday.
Anytime. I look forward to seeing you.
Great.
Okay. My colleague Amy Whitaker will be one of our other full-time faculty. So,
Oh, great. That would be wonderful.
okay.
Okay.
Take
Okay.
care.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Kelly.
everyone.
Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
afternoon.
Take care.
For helping, nudging me to do this. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye for now.
Bye now.
Bye.